We're doing ours on the Citizens United versus FEC case. So in 2016, the National Rifle Association spent over $54.4 million on federal elections. Over 30 million of that was spent to support then Republican candidate Donald Trump, which, according to OpenSecrets.org, was more than the NRA had spent on 45 Senate races, 145 House races, and 2 presidential candidates over 2008 and 2012 combined. But this isn't an isolated incident. From 1998 to 2020, the amount of money lobbied in the United States rose from about $1.45 billion to just around $3.5 billion. But why is this happening? Why is this exponentially growing amount of corporate lobbying money keep growing, getting bigger, and keep influencing our elections? Well, that's all thanks to this court case. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission. You see, before this case, there was a federal law in place called the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002, which prohibited national political party committees from spending more money than the federal limit. The law also prohibited corporations, nonprofit organizations, and unincorporated entities using corporate or union treasury funds from paying for issue advocacy ads or any broadcast ad that names a federal candidate within 30 days of a primary or caucus or 60 days of a general election.
To add on what Gordon is saying, Citizens United created Hillary the Movie, a $1 million film which criticized Hillary Clinton during the 2008 race against Barack Obama, knowing that their film would be considered electioneering communications. According to the Federal Elections Commission, the Federal Elections Campaign Act, also known as FECA, prohibits corporations and labor unions from using their general treasury funds to make electioneering communications or for speech that expresses advocation towards the election or defeat of the federal candidate. Citizens United feared that the film that they created would be covered by the FECA Act and they would be subject to criminal charges. So in December of 2007, Citizens United filed a complaint in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, which challenged the McCain-Feingold Act, also known as the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act. This challenged the constitutionality of several statutory provisions governing electioneering communications. They claim that Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act violates the First Amendment right of free speech. The district court denied Citizens United a preliminary injunction and granted the commissioner's motion for summary judgment. The Supreme Court noted probable jurisdiction over this case, and it was brought to the Supreme Court in 2010. Due to public opinion, over public opinion, many viewed this court case as ridiculous, and they didn't understand why the large corporations thought it was all right to tell citizens of America who to vote for by pumping millions of their dollars into the campaign ads for or against certain candidates. Many believe that corporations have too much power in our nation's democracy system, and the citizens of America have too little. Corporations argue that they should have the same First Amendment rights as individual citizens, whereas the Federal Elections Commission argued that large corporations have too many resources to be given the same First Amendment freedoms because of potential corruption that may result.
Thank you, Levi. So following the case on January 21st, 2010, the court ruled with a 5-4 majority in favor of Citizens United. The majority ruled that the Freedom of the Press Clause of the First Amendment protects associations of individuals in addition to individual speakers, and further, that the First Amendment does not prohibit speech based on identity of the speaker. So essentially their ruling was that corporations have free speech rights and their political speech cannot be restricted any more than that of the individual. Therefore, they're able to fund advertisements supporting a candidate but cannot directly fund the candidate. This ruling overturned 2 previous cases that were brought before the court, being Austin versus Michigan State Chamber of Commerce, which previously allowed prohibitions on independent expenditures by corporations, and also McConnell versus the FEC, which held that corporations could be banned from making donations to some sort of communication factor. With that ruling also came the dissenting opinion led by four liberal justices, Justice Stevens, Justice Ginsburg, Justice Breyer, and Justice Sotomayor. The dissenting opinion was that the government should be allowed to ban corporate money in elections because it could overwhelm the debate and drown out non-corporate voices. The First Amendment being that it would protect the people, not the corporations. Stevens argued that the court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation, and that the path it has taken to reach its outcome will fear damage to that institution. Stevens went on to write in his dissent that the quote-unquote court's blinkered and aphoristic approach to the First Amendment will undoubtedly cripple the ability of ordinary citizens, Congress, and the states to adopt even limited measures to protect against corporate domination of the electoral process. He believed that Americans may be forgiven if they do not feel the court has advanced the cause of self-government today.
Now that we have some information and background of the case, it's time to talk about some effects that occurred due to the ruling of Citizens United versus FEC, which showed the rise in campaign finance, which allowed unlimited election spending by corporations and labor unions, which fueled not only the rise of super PACs, but also the rise of dark money. PAC stands for Political Action Committee, which are just organizations that raise and spend money on campaigns that would support or oppose political candidates. The difference between PACs and super PACs is that PACs allow you to donate directly to a candidate with official campaign, but limits how much they're able to contribute, which is both what they can receive and what they can give. But super PACs began to rise due to another case in 2010, which applied the logic of Citizens United, which stated that outside groups could accept unlimited contribution from both individual donors and corporations, as long as they don't give directly to the candidates. And it's been noticed that super PACs alone have spent over $2.9 billion on federal elections. And although super PACs are required to disclose their donors, but donors could also include dark money, which leads to not knowing where the real source of donation comes from, leaving it really unclear to people wondering where it comes from. Now, dark money is considered to be election-related spending, where the source is secret, and due to Citizens United, big political spenders exploit the transparency in political spending. And it is estimated that dark money expenditures increased less than 5 million to more than 300 million in just the 2012 election cycle. Dark money also allows for foreign countries to hide their activities during the U.S. elections. Because of dark money and PACs, after the 2010 ruling, outside spending in midterm has risen throughout every election, which eventually started affecting future election spending limits.